Hello and welcome back. This is my latest video. In this video you're going to see me take off and land on Duna. When I land on Duna I will be doing so with the top portion of the ship, which has got 6 landing vehicles on it. I decided to try and make a rocket that could land with lots of rovers because of my other video, my To the Moon and Back, in which I take 2, which are smaller than these ones, more prone to flipping and stuff, and one gets broken, and the other one, it's just like, I don't want to use it because if I break it then that's it, the mission's failed essentially. So I wanted to make one with more vehicles, but then you've got the problem of not enough kerbals. 3 is the most you can bring on a mission, so I've made the whole thing completely controlled without any kerbals. As you saw there, the first section has just dropped off. This rocket is essentially the same as the one that I took to the moon and back. The difference, of course, is every single one of the rockets that you can see now, and the centre, of course, I added a second Rockermax mainsail engine and giant fuel tank to bring me up to a fairly high altitude, and then that rocket kicks in. In a minute you'll see that drop off, and it will be the same as what happens with the other one in the moon, where you get the sets of 2 dropping off, 2 at a time. When they all drop off, you've got the centre rocket, which gets me into perfect orbit, and then from there I will activate the nuclear engines and they will take me the rest of the way. This ship is actually capable of reaching anywhere, as far as I'm aware, without the need for refuelling or anything. It gets into a perfect orbit with loads and loads of fuel remaining. It's got more than enough fuel to get you to any planet, any moon. I mean, I've already used this to take me to Eve. That was actually incredibly easy. I had near enough a full fuel tank when I landed. I set myself up on a direct intercept with Eve and went straight down. I didn't do any orbiting or anything, just straight in to Eve, and because of the thick atmosphere, it slowed me down enough that the parachutes stopped me and I landed. Didn't even need to decelerate. Really, I did, of course, just a little bit to be safe. Better safe than sorry, but yeah. And a second one took me to Joule, and I got onto Lathe. I'm pretty sure this will take you anywhere. You'll see in a moment that I achieve orbit, and you can see just how much fuel's remaining when I do. This is a much better orbit than I achieved on my last video. Last time when I got into orbit, I had an apoapsis that was just absolutely massive, like 500,000 or something. Totally unnecessary. It's better to try and achieve it much lower, because obviously you save fuel, and if you're going for a long journey, it's good to save as much as you can. In a minute there'll be a skip, in which I will skip where I lap Kerbin. As soon as I achieve orbit, and you can see that, the amount of fuel, it will fast forward to when I'm actually in orbit of the Sun. As you can see, no cheats were used in the taking off of this vessel. I actually had a question from a friend. The reason why I say that, of course, is because, you know, why have the little cars not ripped themselves apart? Well, they're pretty stable. They're fairly small, well built, stuck together with space tape. They just don't fall apart. They're pretty strong. Even when you drive around on the moon and Duna and everywhere else, they just don't break. You can try. I'll give it my best shot when I do land on Duna to try and break one, and we'll see how it goes. At the moment I'm just trying to achieve orbit. For anyone who's not aware, the best way to try and get into orbit of another planet is, once you're out of Kerbin and into the Sun's orbit, literally work your way around and look at the furthest and closest point, and find the perfect point where you can come out of Kerbin's orbit straight into the orbit of whatever planet you're after. You don't want to be wasting any time or any fuel lapping the sun like a million times or doing a huge reverse burn or anything. I mean, just there, it's fairly straightforward. 1,206. Because I'm only using nuclear rockets on this rocket, the general acceleration is just over 1 meter a second. It doesn't sound like much, but you know, it's not that bad. 1,200 is about 20 minutes, and it will because I'm using about the same amount of fuel. As you see there, I've now fast forwarded it again because nobody needs to see me accelerating for 20 minutes. The fuel has dropped down to 6,000 and 7,000. Yeah, I mean, I actually wasted a lot of fuel. Even though it was supposed to be 20 minutes, I did it in about 5 because I've got fuel to spare. I only really need the top end of the fuel if I'm going out to the further planets. I'm going to actually waste a bit more fuel in a minute just to slow down. I could do it on the nuclear engines, but then I'd be sitting there for ages. When you're trying to get into orbit of a planet, like this one, you need to get your velocity fairly low before you'll achieve an actual orbit. So I need to slow down about 800 meters a second, and it's just horrible. This entire thing actually took me about 2.5 hours to do. To get out of Kerbin's orbit, I had to do about 8 laps of Kerbin, and get a bit further every time on the nuclear engines. Then when I got out, 20-minute burn to get into orbit of Duna, and now I'm in Duna. I need to do another huge burn to get into orbit, and then I'll skip again in a moment. And just to slow down on the surface takes another long amount of time because I've wasted so much monopropellant. It's not a good thing because it's very tricky to hold yourself steady. The SAS doesn't do it, so I have to do it manually. Right, there we go. Orbit 40, that'll do. Or will it? Yeah, this ship took me quite a while to develop. Many Kerbins were sacrificed in the building of this ship. I've actually dedicated the southern hemisphere of Kerbin as a graveyard, like a mass burial field for all the kerbals that were sacrificed to develop this. Many failed ships. Something I've discovered is it's very simple to build a spacecraft that can take off and you know, fly, but it's very difficult to make a spacecraft that can do that without tearing itself apart, either on the way up or the way down. I've actually made one that could easily take off, not a problem, but it just couldn't land for shit. As soon as you tried to come back into the atmosphere, it'd just tear itself apart, or when the parachutes activate, it'd rip itself off. Horrible. I couldn't even fix it, so I had to just go back to the drawing board. Space tape was not enough. Just the nice deceleration now. It does skip forward in a moment. This is on ×8 speed, by the way, just to give you an idea of how long this actually took. It was not good. The RCS running out. I'm just trying to limit the use. At this point you see me taking all the fuel out of the fuel tanks that I used to give me the ability to stick landing gear on. Bit of extra fuel. Just getting all the fuel out of them into the center tanks so it's a bit easier to handle. while it's inside those, it's just very tricky to kind of pass around for where I need it to be. But yeah, I mean, the benefit of this craft over what I've seen from most ships is you just get a shitload of rovers. You know, with 6 in one hit, you know, you land, you drop them all off, and then you can play around. If you happen to lose 1, lose 2, lose 3, you still got plenty left. You didn't have to worry about kerbals dying. I actually had one of my last design. I had 6 rovers, but they were just, you know, they had the little seat. So I had to get my kerbal down off of the ship, which meant I had to build ladders to try and get him down without him exploding. And then when he did get down, I had to get him into the car. And then if you crash, the car will survive probably, but there's a good chance that he will just die. And then you've got a perfect car but no one to drive it. So I've stuck on the old photo, whatever the hell it's called, little control module. So I don't have to worry about getting kerbals at all. Just coming into the final descent now onto the planet. Doesn't take too long. This does fast forward in a moment. So we'll be getting fairly close to actually landing. Once again, this is at ×8 speed. So this gives you an idea of how long this took. It was so tedious. Because I couldn't use the SAS, I had to hold this manually. I had to focus for about 15 minutes straight, just trying to stop the thing from moving off. And without the ability to use RCS too much, it was very nerve-wracking. One mistake and I end up losing my my ship at the last second. Several hours wasted. It's never good. For anyone that doesn't know as well, you can get into orbit of the planet you want to land on, exit out of the game, make a zip folder with your save folder in. Then if you cock it up, you can just delete your save folder and extract another one out. I never did that on this attempt. But I did on my Eve and Dual ones, because that was the first time I was landing on those two, and I had no idea how it was going to handle. I mean, with Eve, I was surprised at how easy it was. Just straight in, the atmosphere decelerated me straight down to like 150 meters a second, and the parachutes activated, and they stopped me near enough. It was brilliant. This planet, not so much. Very thin atmosphere. Gravity's a bit less than that of Kerbals, I believe. Speaking of gravity, the Rovers, each one has got one of every single bit of the science gear. If anyone knows what those communitron things, whatever they are, the little communicator dish and the antenna, I have no idea what they're for. Everything else, I know. In a minute, you're going to see me have a heart attack. I've got my parachutes out, and I'm decelerating. Everything's going smashing. It's all going well. And, you know, I'm thinking, well, I'll just, you know, let it coast for a bit. You know, in a minute, I'll just decelerate myself. What's going through my head at this point is, you know, I'm alright. 100 meters a second, that's not too bad. I'll just let it coast, It starts to get a bit high. I want to think, you know, I want to keep it under 100. So I start accelerating, and then I think, you know what? I really don't need this bottom fuel tank anymore. So I drop it off, but I forget to reduce the power to 0 on it. So it is now pushing against me, and in a second you're going to see my heart attack. This at the moment, I'm just thinking to myself, oh my god, I've cocked it up completely. It was not a good moment for me. No backup save, heart attack. But when this happens, it's like that was good. I'm surprised the thing didn't just rip apart. I knew I'd put enough space tape on, But that surprised me. You might think I'm cheating, but when we land, I do in fact show you the cheat menu again, so you can see that I didn't use the prevent everything from breaking cheat, whatever it's called. Unbreakable joints. Just on the final descent now. It's beautiful. Coming down nice and slow. Here we go. Final bit. Bit too much thrust. And I'll take off again. Right. There you go. I've touched down. See you later, Duna. If only, eh? Right. We have touched down. Mission success. At this point, I just get the little panels unloaded so I can get the battery on the main rocket maintained for the lights, which I actually turn on in between this and the next bit, and then I'll bring up the landing struts on the car. They are basically for if it flips over, if it's upside down, you can use those to right itself. They work brilliantly. They're also great fun to play with, because if you are flipping through the air and then you activate them, it causes you to just spin off really quickly. Right. One mistake I won't make that I made on the moon video is I'll turn the brakes on before I drop them off this time, so they don't roll away. And there we go. Perfect landing. Look at that. Drop them off. They all descend. Perfect little drop to the floor. No drama at all. And that's it. They are now good to go. The rest of the video, and there you go, by the way. No cheats used. As you can see, it's just a clean landing and drop off. The video will now swap over and you'll see the lights have come on while I take control of one of the cars in a second, and then I will show you me driving one of these around. As you can see, the lights are on now on that. Turn the lights on the car and off we go. This is the first time actually testing this. I've made a few adjustments. I added this dish on incorrectly, I might add. It bends to the front and causes the car to pull slightly to the right. Makes it slightly more difficult to get above 20, 23 meters a second, because you're constantly worried about it turning and flipping, but it's not a huge problem. It's only when I'm accelerating as well. If I let the car drift, it just goes in a straight line. The second I start pushing it forwards, it starts drifting to the right. I have no idea why. That's everything turned on. Get the resource meter up so you can see just how much battery power it's got left. And let's ride. And there you go. 6 Rovers on Duna, all of them self-powered, batteries, all the little tools, self-righting, and they're pretty strong. I'm not sure why, but for some reason, because it's got that bit on the back still left from the main rocket, in a minute you'll see me flip it and nothing breaks apart from the decoupler, and it does the explosion animation as if I've just destroyed the whole thing. But then it's like the game realises that, oh, hang on a minute, it didn't break, and then it catches up. I'm not sure why it does it. I assume it's a bug with the 0.2, although I've not actually tried this with the older version, so I couldn't say for certain. I find it funny. It looks like I'm going uphill, but yet my meters are going down. Camera angle for the lose. Yeah, you'll see me reach 24 meters a second. It's pretty quick, and it's holding itself quite straight, and then I'll start trying to flip it in a moment. See how much damage I can do. Here we go. And this is the explosion animation. There it goes, and it's fine still. All that happened was the back light and the decoupler broke off. But everything else is fine, and it still drives, all the wheels are intact. Landing struts, not a problem. No idea why it does it. We'll get it back up to speed and then try and brake it some more. It's pretty tough. Whereas my old ones relied on certain things that are just quite fragile, this one I built it to last. The way I see it, even though there are 6 of them, I don't want to have to go through 4 or 5. I'd prefer to have all 6 of them functioning rather than blow up several. Although I am thinking about making another version and putting something on there like a bit of TNT, so if I get bored I can just blow it up. That'd be fun. Here we go. Another flip. No drama, just flips itself back on its feet. Even when I turn the speed up, it just doesn't want to brake. I think the worst that happens is one of the landing struts comes off, but it's one of the side ones, so since there are 2 on each side, it doesn't really make a lot of difference. Yeah, on the video it looks like that little hill in the distance is very close. But later on you'll see me zoom out just to check, and it's about 40-50 kilometers away. So I kind of give up and just zoom off to the side. Right, 25 meters a second, and I flipped it. This is freaky. I don't know how it happens, but it flips like a boss, and when it lands I start doing a 2-wheeler. I am like a proper stunt driver. And here we go. At the moment I'm torn between pushing the landing gear and just curiosity to see how far it can go before it decides to tip. So I wait. When it starts to tip, I activate the landing gear and send it flying. And there it goes. And there goes the landing gear. And we're down. And it stands up again. See what I mean? This thing just does not want to brake. Doesn't matter what you do, it's just difficult as hell. Even if you break one of the wheels, it will still continue along without any problem. You just have to be a bit more careful if you lose one of the wheels. I do try and break one of the wheels in a moment. As to whether I succeed or not, you'll see. I start getting a bit curious about the motors now, and I start disabling the motors on all the wheels, and what I find is even though you've got 4 wheels with all the motors, if you take out the back 2, it doesn't really make a lot of difference. The only main difference is slowing down. You get better braking if you've got 4 motors on. Acceleration doesn't really change with 2 compared to 4. So I mean, with this you could even lock the steering and turn the motor off on the back 2 wheels and just have it like a front wheel drive car. Or you could lock the back wheels and turn the motors off on the front wheels and have it like a rear wheel drive car. Oh yeah, a bit more sporty now. Or you could just turn 3 motors off and be a bit weird. Oh yeah, holding it on ×2. Back down to ×1. Start turning all the motors back on now, because the acceleration and braking are just terrible if you don't have the motors. This is where I zoom out and realise that I'm actually nowhere near that cliff. So I kind of give up and just start turning off and thinking to myself, right, I'm just going to bust the shit out of this thing if I can. While you're upside down and sliding, activate the gear and you go flying. And there you go, guys. I actually managed to break a wheel. It took about 20 attempts, but I did it. And even though it's got a broken wheel, it still stays fairly straight and it can still accelerate fairly well, as you can see. If anyone's interested in getting a slightly better view of the rocket as a whole, post in the comments and I will be happy to give you a bit by bit walkthrough and show of my actual ship, which I've called the AAA Plus Voyager, because all of my newer ships, I didn't want to destroy the older ones, but they kept all getting muddled up, so I put them AAA Plus so they would be right at the top of the list. Yeah, if anyone's interested and wants a closer look, just give me a call. But apart from that, thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and keep your eyes for more videos.